Hello, thank you for joining us today. Today we're going to be cooking homemade chocolate pudding. Now, first things first, as we've all been aware lately, make sure you wash your hands really well before you start cooking anything or touch your face or whatever. I decided to start with chocolate pudding because I was craving some chocolate pudding recently, and I went to the store, and my dad always taught me to read ingredients on the back of anything I buy. So I was reading the ingredients and I noticed that there are 3 types of dye in chocolate pudding. It was like red, green, and yellow or something like that. And I thought to myself, well, I don't know how good that is for me, but what if I just try to make chocolate pudding at home with all ingredients like these, and then I wouldn't need any dye. So let me show you how I did that. It's really simple. It's just a few ingredients. So first what you do is you take a cup of sugar, which I already have in the pot right here, a cup of sugar, and then you add a 1/4 cup of baking cocoa. I bought this dark chocolate baking cocoa, which I think really helps make it really rich. I'm a dark chocolate fiend, so I like it that way. And then you take an 1/8 cup of cornstarch. And then it's just a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. A lot of people don't think about using salt in sweet things, but salt brings out the sweetness in things. Like, you know, when I make French toast, I always put a pinch of salt in it. And then what you want to do is just take all these dry ingredients and mix it all together. And you see how there are lumps in there? You just want to make sure you get all those lumps out. And you're not going to be able to get all of the lumps out here, but you try to get as many as possible. Because if you don't get the lumps out, you can imagine what happens when you make pudding is you just get left with lumpy pudding. And nobody wants lumpy pudding. I made that mistake once, and I'll never make that mistake again. So just mix that all together as well as you can. Try to get it all out because we're going to do the same thing. Give me that spoon over there. The big one. And a smaller one too. Thank you. So we're going to keep trying to get them out once we get it on the stove, okay? But it's at least mixing all of our ingredients together. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take this to the stove. And we're going to add our milk to it. So first you go over, you put it on medium heat. I just want to let y'all know, you can actually increase this recipe, double it if you want to make double the chocolate pudding. I don't want to make that much pudding at a time. That's just me. So you just keep it on medium, and then you slowly whisk in. It's easier to control, right? Getting all the lumps out. The milk. You take 2 cups of milk, and you add it slowly. So while you're mixing, you add the milk so that all of it gets mixed together. And then it's easier to get the lumps out. Make sure it's all smooth. You make sure you get all of that, and it all wants to be a big happy family, right? The pudding all wants to be together. I don't know if any of y'all have ever made anything that takes a really long time. I'm sure you all have experience making pudding or roux or something like that, where the more you cook it, and that's what the cornstarch is for, to make it very thick, it thickens it up, right? So that it's not just a bowl of milk, a bowl of chocolate milk. So as you can see, all that's getting whisked together very nicely. But after it starts cooking, because you can see now it's starting to get hot, there are little flakes on top, right? And I think that the best way to take care of that, for me, is to kind of skim the top like this and then just mash. You see how there's still some chocolate that's not mixed in? There's still some powder that's not mixed in, and that's what you're doing. You're just kind of getting it all together while it's heating up. And like anything that thickens, the more you cook it, the thicker it's going to get. And that's why you have to keep stirring it. Because once it sticks on the bottom, if you don't stir it, it will burn. And I'm just trying to get everything all mixed up together here. This is the easiest way for me to do it. I mean, if y'all find a better way to do this, I don't think the whisk really does this for me. I kind of have to have something working against itself, right? So the 2 spoons kind of mashing is the best method for me. Now, it's been a long time since I made boxed pudding, and I guess that's why I didn't realize it had dye in it. I don't even know if when last time I used it, there was dye in it. I think there's more and more dye in all of our stuff, but I don't remember if this is part of that or not. So y'all might already know how to do all this, you know? I'm just showing you how easy it is to make your own dry pudding mix that you would spend so much money to do in the store. Even if it is just a couple of dollars. Imagine if you already bought all the things I put together, how much cheaper it is even, you know? But that's not the reason why I'm doing it this way. The reason why I'm doing it this way is to control ingredients that go into my food, which I think is really important, and it's getting more and more important as everything is super processed in this country. See, there's still some more chocolate that's not mixed in. If I didn't do this, it would just all turn to lumps. And the heat actually helps because the heat will help melt the chocolate. Or if you just put in cold milk, if I tried to just do this on the counter before I moved it over to the stove, it wouldn't be, it would feel a lot less easy to do. And then I always kind of scrape off the side if I can. Now it's still, the fire's still on medium heat, so it's all heating up. Okay, and then you just want to stir. I mean, you don't have to keep an eye on it. You have to keep an eye on it, but you don't have to keep a spoon on it at all times. But you don't want to take your spoon off of it and then walk away and go watch an episode of whatever your favorite show is either, because it will stick and it will burn. Or it'll get really lumpy, which is what the mistake I made one time, is I just decided to let it heat up on its own in the pot without keeping track of it. And then it wound up getting super lumpy, and it was so lumpy that it was not enjoyable to eat. I mean, it still tasted good. I'm sure y'all can understand that. But it didn't have the texture I wanted, so it didn't really satisfy a craving for pudding. You know, because when we have a craving for pudding, we want pudding. Okay, it looks like most of it's out. I'm going to come across more, I'm sure. If you keep stirring it. And it's times like this, so it's heating up, but it's still not, you see my spoon is not pulling anything up. So you can kind of take a little break and turn. And what I do is I'll get my bowl ready where I'm gonna put the pudding to cool after it's finished cooking. And what I do is I just put the butter on the bottom. So it's just 1 teaspoon of butter. And it is 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. This is the vanilla extract. And that's just gonna sit there ready for the pudding. And you go back, like I said, you just come back and you stir. I mean, I don't know about you, but I like pudding any time of the year, you know? I can remember when I was a kid and my mom would make pudding and it was winter, you know, winter. We had it warm. We didn't cool it in the fridge. So if you want to do that, you can also eat pudding warm. The thing is that the more you put it in the fridge and you set it, the thicker it'll get. You have to heat it up to get it to thicken, and then you have to cool it to make it even more thick. Just, I guess, one of those chemistry answers. Still not. You can make it in a smaller pot. Sometimes I make it in a smaller pot. I thought today I'd use a larger pot to give it more surface for the heat to penetrate it. And I don't know if it's helping with making it go more quickly. It's a great workout. Working your arms out while you're cooking. So there are a lot of positives to making sure you're healthy and eating what you cook. It's not thickening yet. It's getting there. It has to almost be to a boil. So you want it to kind of, it says to bring it to a boil and to stir for 2 more minutes. That's what the recipe, you're supposed to do with the recipe. But the problem is it's going to take longer than 2 minutes to bring it to a boil. And if you let it get to the boil without stirring it, it'll scald. Because it has milk in it. And everybody knows if you boil milk, it'll scald unless you make sure you do it right. You have to do it slowly, and you have to keep it mixed. Of course, you can bring milk right to the point right before boiling it, and it will make it thicker. Or I used to cook coffee, my coffee like that, cook it with milk, like a cafe au lait, and then turn it off right before it hit boiling because it actually helped the coffee bind to the milk that way. Just gonna let it kind of not stir it constantly, but just let it thicken a little bit. I feel it on the bottom of the pan. I mean, while you're stirring it, you can tell it's starting to get a little thickness to it. And some people, you know, if you wanted to do this without stirring it constantly, what you could do is just use a double boiler. So you put water in the bottom pan and then you put the other pan on top of it that doesn't have water. It sits in the water and it helps everything from not sticking onto the bottom of the pan. See how it's getting thicker? It might not be building up on the bottom of the pan yet, but it is. You can tell that the liquid is actually starting to get thicker. And you see how the temperature of the pot is, the liquid in the pot, you can tell by the, you know, the steam right there, that it's actually is getting hotter. Now you see, that's starting to build up right there. There's starting to be something that's sticking to the spoon. And that's what you're looking for, something that's going to stick to the spoon from the bottom. And that's that layer of thickness. You know, sometimes the best things in life take time. I can remember how great the ice cream my mom used to make when we were kids, the homemade ice cream, and it used to take forever. But boy, that ice cream didn't taste like store-bought ice cream. And I would suggest if you want other flavors, you know, like say you want strawberry, well, just make a simple syrup out of the strawberries. Simple syrup is just water and sugar, and you just cook it together until it makes like a syrup. And then you can let the strawberries seep in there, and it'll actually take the flavor of the strawberry. And then you use the simple syrup instead of sugar, and then it's already dissolved. So after you cook you mix the dry ingredients together, and you maybe add the simple syrup to the milk and add it, you know, at the same time. I haven't tried that yet, but maybe I will. Maybe we'll see how that goes. See how much strawberries we need in order to make the syrup taste like a strawberry. But I don't think color should matter. Even though my cousin did a science experiment when we were kids, and it was just all water, and she took food coloring and she made the water all different colors and asked us what our favorite color, you know, which water we liked the best. And everybody had a different favorite based on the color, but it was all just water. Okay, so you see how it's starting to thicken now? You see how that's getting that on the side? So what I do is I just take another spoon and help it get back in there. Help it get back in there, make sure it's not making a lump. You don't want to, you don't want to lose pudding. I figure if you take it off the bottom, it belongs to be with the family too. You just get it all in the family. And it's getting close to a boil. I haven't seen a boil yet, but you can tell by like I said, the steam. You can tell by the steam how close it is to a boil. You see, even if you stop with a spoon a little bit, it's not boiling yet. You see how much we're pulling up off the bottom? It thickens from the bottom up because the heat is all on the bottom. The majority of the heat is anyway. I mean, you can tell by this entire thing cooking that it's pretty hot. But the closest to the fire is the hottest, and that totally makes sense, right? So that's the part that's gonna start thickening first. It's like anytime. I don't know if y'all ever make like a pot of beans. You know, you got to stir that periodically because it'll get thick on the bottom. And if you don't make sure you keep stirring that, it will burn. That's why I use the method of like 2 spoons. I know it looks a little ridiculous, but to me, and I'm sure a lot of my actual chef friends, because I am not an actual chef, but I'm sure they use, you know, the heat resistant spatulas, the soft spatulas will probably be really easy to use like that. Just I don't think I have one of those. I'd have to check. But I just use this method and, you know, that show y'all that you don't need all the great product, all the great utensils in order to make great food. You don't need the highest end. I mean, it doesn't hurt, trust me. You know, I still dream of getting the best cooking set ever, but it's not necessary in order to make something that you're really going to enjoy and you know, make sure that you're eating something that's purely healthy. You know, as healthy as a sweet dessert can be. You know, moderation is the best way to tackle having what you want. So, I mean, really, something like this would be at least 4 servings to me. So if you double this recipe, you'd probably get about 8. Okay, there you see, it's starting to boil. You see how it's starting to boil? It's a nice, thick boil. You want to cook it at least 2 minutes after that. But you can tell when it really gets thick that it's ready. So, that, as you can see on that clock, it says 3:52. We're going to keep it going until it says at least 4 or after, since it already said 2 when we started paying attention. And then this is the part where you're like, oh, boy, this really takes, 2 minutes is really a long time. It's really not that long. But after you've been stirring, waiting for it to boil, it seems like it. I wish y'all could smell this. It's starting to smell really good. You see how thick it's getting? You see that now? That is thick right there. And then you know what I start thinking about this time too? I think, ooh, after I put that in a bowl to set, there's going to be a nice pot to lick. You know, you got to lick the bowl after you make cookies or brownies or pudding. I just get that right off of there. Get it right off. It's still boiling. Sometimes I'll think it starts boiling and I start counting for 2 minutes and then I'm like, wait, that wasn't boiling. It's just really hot. So just make sure you look for the thick boil like that. And once it starts boiling, even if you stir it, it's gonna keep boiling. See, the clock says 3:54. So you want to cook it. See, now when you take the spoon, you see how it parts like the Red Sea? It's kind of like parts like the Red Sea. There you go. That's when you know it's ready. So then you take it off the fire. Take it off the fire. Sorry about the loud banging. And I want to get all that pudding in there. Right? Even if I don't mind licking it off the spoon. So So then what I do is I take it right over, back over to the bowl, and you're supposed to, let me get something to hold this with. So what you do is as you're putting the pudding in the bowl, you're mixing the butter and the vanilla in together. I could smell that vanilla too. And then you just get it all out of the pot. You see? See, it's thicker on the bottom. You get all that out. You put it all in there. You stir it all up. I'll try to get as much as I can out of that pot as possible. Because once this cools and you start eating it, you're gonna wish you had more of it. Let's see, you can see the butter's almost all mixed into there. Right? Give me a plate out, a flat, not a big one, a small one. Okay? And this is important for you to put in the refrigerator. So a secret I learned when I started making this is you want to take the saran wrap, instead of just covering it, make sure you have enough here so that you actually can put it on the actual pudding. You see, it'll stick, but make sure you put it on the pudding. And that is to stop, I'm sure you've had this as a kid too. You ever know when you make pudding and you put it in the fridge and you cool it and it has a thick film on top of it that's harder than the rest of the pudding? This will stop that film from forming because you have the plastic wrap straight on the pudding. It will all cool exactly the same, evenly. I don't know why. I'd have to call my former chemistry teacher or something to find out why that happens. But what I also like to do is I like to put it on a plate instead of putting a hot bowl that's glass directly into my cold fridge, which might cause the bowl to crack. I put it on a plate so that the plate can actually take the coolness and cool the bowl. And I just put it straight in the fridge. And this is the one I made yesterday, so you can see what it actually looks like after it's been cooling. This is the plastic wrap. Here, let's try it with the spoon. That is a great pudding. So delicious. I wish I could share this with you right now, but as I've shown you, it's really not a difficult process. It just takes time. There's not that many ingredients. You just have to put it in correctly. So I really hope that you have enjoyed this first episode of Cooking with Cleavage. I'm gonna rack my brain and figure out what I could possibly make next time to top chocolate pudding. Y'all have a great day.